Okay, so look with me here. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 31. This is a very familiar passage, I'm sure. But let's just read this text real quick. Paul says, "So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God." Now I'd like to just speak on this text this morning on the subject, the matter of doing everything to the glory of God. And, you know, this concept obviously is not only found here. It's sort of all over the Bible. You get a couple of different passages. Colossians 3:17, "Whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him." Another passage, 1 Peter 4, you don't necessarily have to turn there. Just listen to some of the things that Peter sums up here. 1 Peter 4, 8 through 11, he says, "Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Whoever speaks, as one who speaks oracles of God. Whoever serves, as one who serves by the strength that God supplies." Now, notice where he's going to go here. "In order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ." So he talks about loving one another, showing hospitality. If you have gifts of the Spirit, to use those gifts of the Spirit. And he says, so that, in order that everything, all these things that are done in the Christian life, that in all of it, God is glorified through Jesus Christ. To him belong glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. So you have this sort of theme spread throughout the Bible, that whatever we do it to the glory of God. So this is a very familiar idea, a familiar theme, certainly a familiar text. But I would like to just add something here, not necessarily in terms of adding to the Bible, but I'd like to add something more specific, a focus that's more specific this morning. Particularly, I would like to speak about enjoying life to the glory of God. Not just doing all that you do to the glory of God, but enjoying life to the glory of God. And the reason why I want to make my point that way is because doing something to the glory of God, brethren, it does not mean that you do it without joy and without pleasure. For you to do something to the glory of God, it does not mean that you have to prevent yourself from finding any kind of enjoyment and satisfaction out of that thing, lest somehow you steal glory from God. That's not what that means. And in fact, I would say that it's quite the opposite. That to do something to the glory of God, that we ought to do those things with a great sense of delight and enjoyment, and to do those things giving thanks to God through all of it. So whether it's working to the glory of God, or raising your kids to the glory of God, or living in marriage to the glory of God, or serving in the church to the glory of God, or even something down to, as Paul says here, eating and drinking, even eating a meal to the glory of God. Brethren, to do that properly, none of that should be done with a sense of detached, cold obedience out of necessity. That's not what God desires us to live like. God has given you life as a gift, and everything that is involved in it ought to be received and enjoyed as God's gifts to men. I mean, this is exactly what we read, what Sergio read for us out of Ecclesiastes. Listen to this again. "I perceive that there is nothing better for them than to be joyful and do good as long as they live. Also that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all his toil. This is God's gift to men. Brethren, all these things are God's gifts to you. The psalmist, he tells us in Psalm 118, this is the day that Yahweh has made. Does anybody know what he says after this?
I will rejoice and be glad in it.
Yes. Let us rejoice and be glad in it, brethren. Life, the time that you spend on this earth, it really is a precious gift given to you by God, and He intends that you enjoy it. He intends that you enjoy it to His glory, right? Jesus says that He came that you might have life and life abundant. Now, you don't want to take that and somehow make that to mean for you that you're going to have the biggest house and the best car and the highest paying job and all of those things. It doesn't necessarily mean that. But also don't take that text to mean that Jesus isn't concerned about what your life might be like. That's not true either. Brethren, don't think for a minute that holiness, that being holy means that you rid yourself of enjoyment and satisfaction in life. That's not what holiness is. Holiness isn't to say, I hate everything about these good gifts that God has given me in this life, and I'm only looking toward what might happen when I die. That's not holiness, brethren. That's not what holiness looks like. But many people think that that's what holiness looks like. And so what I want to do this morning is consider how we can enjoy life to the glory of God. And don't forget that aspect there, right? I'm not here talking this morning about how you can enjoy life. I am talking about that, but I'm talking about how you enjoy life to God's glory, right? Because those two things, while they might be formed together in the same sentence, if you take them apart and you separate out the glory of God and you're just concerned about how do I enjoy life, well, you might end up not glorifying God. But if you can figure out how to do those things together, how God intends you to do them together, to enjoy the gifts of life that God has given you, and to do that for His glory, this is how God desires us to live. So I have a lot of examples that I want to kind of go through that are throughout your Bible of how we ought to enjoy life. And I've tried to put them under different headings to somewhat make sense of them, but it was a bit complicated. So maybe the headings aren't super helpful, but I had to do it in some way that it made sense to me. But ultimately what I want you to do, at the end of all of this, what I want is to show you these affirmations, these exhortations in the Bible for you to enjoy these different aspects of life. Because, brethren, there is much that God has given us to enjoy in life and to enjoy it to His glory. And I really want to encourage you to live this way. So we're going to consider all these different aspects, enjoying life to the glory of God. And then before we close, I want to give you a brief warning. I think it's necessary to give. I don't want it to undo everything that I'm going to say to you over the next 45 minutes or so, but I want to give you at least somewhat of a warning at the end. Just something for you to also keep in mind as you try to balance this, because that really is often how the Christian life is. It's a matter of balance, brethren. It's a matter of balance. And so, I want you to go forth enjoying life to the glory of God, but I want you to keep a warning in mind, and we'll look at it at the end. So the first heading, if you will, that I want to just think about here when it comes to enjoying life to the glory of God is that we enjoy the basics of life. Okay, this is the best way that I thought to make sense out of this. But brother, I want you to think that even these basics of what encompasses your life, remember that the Bible tells us in James 1:17, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights. Brethren, you have to remember all these gifts that we're going to discuss, these gifts of God, they are not the devil's distractions. Those things are for you. They are God's graciousness given to His children. They are meant to be enjoyed with a proper attitude of thanksgiving to God. So let me give you at least a few things worthy of enjoying in life to the glory of God, these basics. The first thing actually comes right from our text here in 1 Corinthians 10. Paul said, whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Two gifts from God worthy to be enjoyed to His glory are food and drink. Food and drink. Now, some of you may not know this, but I'm certain that some of you do know this. When it comes to food, this is kind of my jam, okay? Some of you know that my wife and I are about to take a vacation here coming up for our anniversary. And some of you, I'm sure, already know that wherever I'm going, something I've already done is considered what restaurants we might try when we go wherever we're going to go. This is just part of who I am. I would have to say that food might be among one of my favorite gifts from God. But brethren, there's a reason for this, okay? There's a reason why I find enjoyment in this gift of God, and it's this. All of you know, God has given you all taste buds, right? All of you have this. It's part of your anatomy. It's part of your biology. And you know, brethren, God did not give you that. God did not give you those taste buds in your mouth so that you could eat and drink merely to survive. He could have done that. He could have removed every sense of pleasure and enjoyment from eating. You could have been just just nothing. You just eat literally just to survive, just to supply your body with nutrients. But brethren, that's not how God made you. That's not the biology that He gave you. He made you so that you could taste the glory of food and drink and rejoice in it. He made you that way. One preacher said, it is amazing how much of the glory of God is edible. And brethren, I would have to wholeheartedly agree with this, right? So it's a very basic thing of life, right? Now you do have to eat to survive, right? You do have to drink and eat so that you can survive. It's a basic necessity. But brethren, even this basic necessity, God has orchestrated it and given it to you in your life where it ends up a gift. It ends up as a good blessing, something you can enjoy. Listen to how the psalmist puts this. Go to Psalm 104. Psalm 104. And listen to how this is put here. Look at starting in verse 14. It says, "You cause the grass to grow for the livestock, and plants for man to cultivate, that he may bring forth food from the earth and wine to gladden the heart of man, oil to make his face shine, and bread to strengthen man's heart." Brethren, you can see, right? These things given by God are meant to be enjoyed. They are meant to gladden the heart, brethren. They're not things that you are supposed to abstain from or to avoid enjoyment in. That's not what God desires out of it. Brethren, you know this. Paul actually says in 1 Timothy, he says that there are those who will come along and they will teach abstinence from food and drink. And you know what he calls this? Does anybody know what Paul says that this is? Doctrine of demons. When Paul says there are people who are going to come along to you and they're going to lead you astray and they're going to teach you abstinence from food and drink and you can't eat this, you can't eat that, and make sure you take no enjoyment out of this kind of stuff, Paul says that is doctrine of demons. That's not biblical. Brethren, if someone thinks that they are more holy because they used to enjoy food, but now they don't enjoy their food, That's not holiness, brethren. That's not godliness. If you meet people like this, you need to avoid these types of people. God created these things for your pleasure, for you to enjoy them. And to not enjoy them is to treat the gift giver like his gifts are not valuable. So, brethren, when it comes to food and drink, I would encourage you to rejoice in these things. That these basics of life are given to you by God. They are intended for you to enjoy them with thanksgiving, right? Enjoy this gift of God to the glory of God. Now let me give you another basic thing of life that I think many people forget is actually a gift and a blessing from God. Now, this one may cause some argument in your homes. So I apologize in advance for this one. But it has to be dealt with, okay? Consider God's gift of sleep. Okay? And maybe you say, well, where in the world are you getting that from? Where does the Bible ever call that a gift? Does anybody know where the Bible considers this a gift given by God? Psalm 4. What does it say? Okay, that's the text. It is not Psalm 4. It is Psalm 127. But you had the text memorized, so that's, we give you 10 points for that. Psalm 127. Psalm 127. Verse 2. Listen to this. It is in vain that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for he gives to his beloved sleep. Isn't this interesting? I remember the first time somebody quoted me that passage, and I legitimately did not even think he was quoting from the Bible. This is a very interesting text. Now, some of you have made good use of this gift. Maybe too much use of this gift. Each of you are going to have to consider this for yourself and be honest with yourself how you've used it and whether you've overused it. But some of you maybe have failed to recognize that this is actually a gift from God. That God gives it to his beloved. Some of you might be like me, and at times you're like the person in the first part of this verse. The person who rises early, goes late to bed, filled with anxious toil. You're trying to do everything in one day and get it all done, right? That's often how I find myself. And what I would say to you, which I need to often say to myself, is stop. Go to sleep. Go to sleep and enjoy God's gift to you, right? That's what it is. Go and enjoy your sleep. Stop thinking that somehow sleep is a waste of your time. Now, I don't know if anybody else has ever thought that before, but I've often said that to my wife, and it's just not biblical to think like that. Sleep is not a waste of your time. It is a gift given to you by God to be enjoyed in its proper place. Thank him for those nights of rest. And when you need rest, bring it to him as a text of prayer. Bring this to God. God, you say in your word that you give your beloved sleep. Am I not one of your beloved? Give me sleep. I need a rest, right? My body needs to restore itself. But this is a wonderful gift from the Father of lights, and I would encourage you to not be ashamed of this, not try to shun this away, but enjoy this gift of God in its proper place in your life. Again, you have to be mindful with this, right? You can go to the Proverbs and you can find the sluggard there and he doesn't want to get out of his bed, right? And he's making excuses. There's a lion outside. I can't get up, right? You don't want to be this kind of person. But you also don't want to be this person in the song. Rising early, late to bed, anxious toil, you just can't get to sleep, don't want to get to sleep. Brethren, God says he gives it to you as a gift. Enjoy it to his glory. Now, there's more we could say there about basics, but let's look at something else here, okay? Let's consider a separate heading, if you will. We are called throughout Scripture to enjoy our labors. Enjoy our labors. Now, you could call this different things. You could call this enjoying your work. You could call this enjoying your toil, which is often how the author of Ecclesiastes actually puts this. And brethren, listen, this is such a vital piece to enjoying life to the glory of God. Because if you think that you can only enjoy things like vacations or things that you might think are blessings, then you will fail to recognize that even labors and toils and the difficulties of life, they are given to you as gifts from God. Gifts meant to be enjoyed. And I want you to see just how often that this actually comes out in Ecclesiastes. So go over there, go to Ecclesiastes chapter 2. And I want you to see just how often this is mentioned here. Ecclesiastes 2, verse 24. Here's our first example. There is nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. Isn't that interesting, brethren? You ever thought, I'm going to enjoy my toil? I don't know anybody that's ever said that before. But this is what the Bible is telling us to do. Find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. It's a gift to you, brethren, to be enjoyed. Now look over to chapter 3, verses 9 through 13. Now we saw this text already, but let's just read it again. What gain has the worker from his toil? I have seen the business that God has given to the children of men to be busy with. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart. Yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end, I perceive that there is nothing better for them than that they be joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also, that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all his toil. This is God's gift to man. The toil is God's gift to you. Look at chapter 5, verse 18 through 20. Behold, what I have seen to be good and fitting is to eat and drink and find enjoyment and all the toil with which one toils under the sun, the few days of his life that God has given him, for this is his lot. Everyone also to whom God has given wealth and possessions and power to enjoy them and to accept his lot and rejoice in his toil. This is the gift of God. For he will not much remember the days of his life, because God keeps him occupied with joy in his heart. Again, you have this theme over and over again. Look at chapter 9, verses 7 through 10. Go, eat your bread with joy, and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do. Let your garments be always white. Let not oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love all the days of your vain life. Now, remember, I don't know, maybe you don't remember because some of you weren't here, but I want to make this point briefly for you. Vain in the book of Ecclesiastes does not mean useless. Okay, we might hear that word and we think useless, but that's not what it means here in this book. The word actually means something that's short, something that's fleeting, something that doesn't last forever. And if you in the text we just read, actually, well, I'm not going to go back there right now. But if you go through Ecclesiastes, you'll find out that this idea of vain and short, that your life is short. It's going to pass before you know it. And this is the idea that's being put forth in Ecclesiastes. So when he says, enjoy life with the wife whom you love all the days of your vain life, he's not talking about that your life is useless or that it has no value or that you shouldn't care about it, but that it's short, right? And he's telling you, enjoy it. It's short. It's going to come to an end quick before you know it, before you recognize it. So enjoy life with the wife whom you love all the days of your short life that he has given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life, and your toil at which you toil under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. For there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you are going. So brethren, listen. The constant refrain through Ecclesiastes is that God has given you these toils, this work in your life, and it is given to you as a gift. Brethren, not everything is a vacation in life. And it's not supposed to be. That's actually a good thing, right? Work is not evil. God made Adam to work in the garden before the curse ever came. God made you all to work. Now, your work is obviously going to look different, right? He made each of you to work in one way or another, and it's going to differ from man to woman, and even from man to man. But the point is that your work and your labor and your toils are for you to enjoy to the glory of God. Now, we're told in one of these passages here, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might. You find in the book of Colossians chapter 3, it says this, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord. Brethren, the constant exhortation throughout Scripture in regards to work and labor and toils is that you don't do them in a dispassionate, emotionless way. That's not how you're supposed to do this. We are to work with a sense of joy and satisfaction in what we do. That you do it heartily, brethren. You do it heartily. You do it with all your might. How else does that look? I mean, if you go to work and you're doing it heartily, and that's without emotion, without any passion, without any desire, that's not heartily, brethren. But the Bible tells you to do it this way, to find enjoyment in it. And men, listen, as you go to work, do your jobs and enjoy it to the glory of God. Do the best job that you can do. Be the hardest worker that you can be. And even this, when there are difficulties in your work, when you have toils and difficulties, brethren, find a way to even enjoy those things as part of this process that we go through in life. Now, Sergio knows I trained him to be a plumber, and I have not always done this as best as I can, but I hadn't preached this sermon yet either. So, but I would encourage you, brethren, that even in those toils and those difficulties, find enjoyment in those things. God has given them to you as a gift. And men, listen, here's the reality, right? For most of us in here, work and toil takes up the better part of your life. That's just the reality, right? You're usually working, most days anyway, you're usually working at least half of your waking hours. I don't know if these statistics are right, but I would guess they probably are, that most men end up spending a third of their lifetime at work. Now maybe you hear that and that's depressing, but that's not supposed to be depressing for you, right? If that's depressing for you, we're not doing this well. We're not finding enjoyment in our toils and our work and our labors. And if you're going to spend a third of your lifetime doing something, you better start enjoying it, right? Or you better buckle up for a long road. And ladies, this very much applies to you also. Now, some of you may be working normal, regular jobs, and so the former points would apply to you just the same. But some of you don't work, like a normal job where you go there and you clock in and you do your thing, right? What you guys do, you have to do things like constantly feeding starving children, right? And changing dirty diapers, and fixing scraped knees and elbows, and washing and folding laundry, and cleaning endless dishes, and sweeping the floors, and cleaning the bathrooms. And you're trying to do all that while you're trying to teach one kid how to read, and another kid how to multiply fractions, and another kid how to spell his name, and another kid the difference between red and blue, right? This is complicated stuff. These are toils. I recognize that. This isn't simple, and it can be difficult. But ladies, the exhortation, those of you who have children and you're working in your homes, the exhortation is also to you. to find enjoyment in those things. Enjoy the fact that God has given you that privilege. Enjoy taking care of the miraculous lives that you've created in your wombs. It's a miraculous thing that God has done. Enjoy taking dominion in your homes. Enjoy teaching your children to be useful and helpful to you in your homes. Enjoy your labors. Enjoy your toils. Because these things are God's gifts to you. And so when you think about enjoying life to the glory of God, brethren, this is a huge part of it. Learning to enjoy your work, enjoy your labors, enjoy your toils. Now, the last thing I want you, the last sort of heading here that we'll consider is that you enjoy your life in all circumstances. Now, what I mean by that is some people may be tempted to think that because of their circumstances that they're hindered from enjoying life. Someone who's older might think, I wish I was younger again. And then I could enjoy my life. Then I could be happy. Another one who is younger might think, I just wish I was older, that I had more experience and more wisdom. Someone who's unmarried may think, if I just had a spouse, then I could really enjoy life. And someone who's married, well, hopefully they're not saying that I wish that wasn't the case. But I would say this, brother, and I would say this, that those who are married, although they do recognize that marriage is a great blessing from the Lord, I think what they do also recognize is that it creates a lot of obligations in life, obligations that single people don't have. And maybe there's some degree to which every married person in here does miss and remember things that they could do or would do when they were not married. And so what I want you to understand, brethren, is that in all of these circumstances, you ought to enjoy life to the glory of God, regardless of whatever circumstance God may have you in. In fact, not only that, but the Bible actually says that in each and every one of these circumstances, there is blessing from God. And you may not think so, but each of these circumstances in life are God's gifts to you, gifts to be used and enjoyed properly. So let's consider first one here. Consider this matter of marriage. Now, brethren, if you are married, God has given you a very pleasant and good gift. And He very much intends that you enjoy it. Listen, let me just give you a few passages here, okay? Men, you are told in Proverbs 5:18, let your fountain be blessed and rejoice in the wife of your youth. You are told to rejoice in this wife you have. Listen to this, Ecclesiastes 9. Now, we read this text earlier, but again, Ecclesiastes 9. Let your garments always be white. Let not oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love all the days of your vain life. Enjoy your wife. This is what you're told, men. Now, ladies, listen to this. In the Song of Solomon, the wife speaks of her husband, and she says this, let me see your face. Let me hear your voice. For your voice is sweet and your face is lovely. My beloved is mine and I am his. She loves and longs for her husband. Later on in the same book, she's asked, what is your beloved more than another beloved? These people come to her and they ask, this husband of yours, why is he so great? What makes him so wonderful? And so she responds, listen to this. My beloved is radiant and ruddy, distinguished among 10,000. His head is the finest gold. His locks are wavy, black as raven. His eyes like doves beside the streams of water, bathed in milk, sitting beside a full pool. His cheeks are like beds of spices. Now, listen, this may not be the way that you necessarily want to I don't know, encourage your husband. I don't know if he is necessarily wanting to hear regularly that his cheeks are like beds of spices. But you can get the point, right? That she is infatuated with her husband. She loves him, right? She desires him. Listen, his arms are rods of gold. Now that's a good one. You can use that one. His arms are rods of gold set with jewels. His body is polished ivory bedecked with sapphires. His legs alabaster columns. His appearance is like Lebanon, choice as the cedars. He is altogether desirable. This is my beloved, and this is my friend. You see how she speaks about her husband. He's not just some dope that she doesn't like around. This is how television would want you to see the wife with the husband. But that's not how this is. In the Bible, the husband loves and cherishes his wife. And the wife cherishes her husband. She looks at him and she wants to say to those around, look at my husband. He is glorious, splendid. What does she say here? Now I lost my place. Distinguished among 10,000, right? She takes pride in her husband. This is my beloved and this is my friend. Brethren, this ought to be your marriage. An infatuation with and a thorough enjoyment of your spouse. Husbands, enjoy your wife. And wives, long to be with your husband. You guys, this is not a co-worker relationship. Marriage is not just some co-worker thing where you're supposed to complete some task together. That's not what marriage is. I love those words that she says about her husband in Song of Solomon. This is my beloved and this is my friend. Brethren, marriage is not supposed to be just some sort of contractual agreement for raising children or whatever greater purpose you might want to put on it. That's not what that's for. It is God's gift to you for companionship. You know what God said, right? When He made Eve, what was the issue with Adam? It wasn't good for him to be alone, right? And God said, I will make a companion for you, right? He didn't just say, I'm going to make this coworker. You guys are going to work together on this project. When you're done with that project, we'll send you off over here. He didn't just say his contractual thing. This is really just you guys can accomplish something else. It really has nothing to do with you two personally. It was not good that he was alone. And God said, I'm giving you somebody for you. This is going to be your companion, your friend. It is God's gift to you, brethren. And so in marriage, sit and enjoy time with your spouse. Hug them. Kiss them. Men, at some point, go stop your wife from making dinner and dance with her. Ladies, you know your husband gets up early in the morning to go and study or do some work. Get up, go over there and take him away from his work and sit with him and hold him. I promise you, he won't hate it, right? This is how in marriage you display love and companionship to one another, right? Go run away from your kids and go cuddle in your bed while they try to beat on the door and try to get in and pretend like there's a zombie apocalypse outside. Show one another that you love each other, right? Enjoy one another. My son's laughing because that's what he does. Your marriage is to be enjoyed. It is a gift given to you by God. Now, I can't really speak much about marriage without at least briefly touching on children. So let me just talk about this as well. You know how the Bible speaks of children? You can go there, Psalm 127. Psalm 127, verses 3 through 5. Behold, children are a heritage from Yahweh, the fruit of the womb a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. Brethren, listen. Children are not intended by God to be a burden on your life. They are to be a blessing in your life. You are not to bear with your children, but you are to enjoy your children. And listen, I would give you this exhortation, parents, as I often need it for myself, but that you would take time to enjoy your children. I know that that can be difficult at times, especially as you keep having more and more and more of them. I can remember it seemed so easy to enjoy my son when he was the only one. And now you have more and more and more of them, and it becomes more difficult to do that because it always just seems like there's something I got to do. I can't enjoy my kids. I got to do this long list of things. But those of you who do have children, fathers, mothers, I would plead with you to enjoy your children. To enjoy their accomplishments. To enjoy their failures. To enjoy their development and growth, right? As you teach them something and they forget it, and you have to teach them 10 times to get this thing right. To enjoy that as part of what God has given you in this parent-child relationship, to teach them about life. To enjoy their oddities. And all of them have them. I remember when my son was very little and I was around other 6 and 7 and 8-year-olds, and I would think, gosh, that kid is so weird. Why is he like that? And now I know why they're like that, because they're all like that. And some of you have little ones. When your kids turn 7 and 8, and you're going to be like, oh, my kid is just like that weird kid that I knew at church. They're all like that. They all have weird things. They all do weird things. But you know what, brethren? Learn to enjoy those things, because those are your children. That's how God has made them. Enjoy their oddities. Enjoy their differences from one another. Brethren, listen. I don't know what creates this even in Christian culture, but when parents look at other parents and their kids and they start comparing, and his kid does that and their kid does that, and it's like, just enjoy your kids for who they are. Your kids are not going to be the same as their kids, and that's okay. You don't have to be the same, and God doesn't want them to be the same. He didn't cookie cutter every single child. Every kid has different desires. Every kid has different giftings. Every kid is very different. And enjoy those differences in your kids. Mothers, fathers, your children love you. And we do them great harm when we treat them like an obligation rather than a blessing. And your children know if you do not enjoy them. And it's a very, very sad thing, brethren, to have children grow up with their parents not enjoying them. Now, even for those of you who are here who are not parents, or even those of you who are grandparents, because there are a few of you, right? You also ought to enjoy these children. I know they can be loud. I know they can at times be obnoxious. And I mean, at the prayer meeting, what was it? At the prayer meeting a couple weeks ago, everybody was like yelling at each other, like face to face, trying to have fellowship because the children were so loud. I know that kind of thing happens, right? I know they can be loud and obnoxious at times. I know that they can ask some of you to sit with them constantly at the prayer meeting and at lunch, and you never get any time to yourself. And listen, you don't have to necessarily say yes to them all the time. You can tell them no. But listen, they do that kind of thing because they love you and they enjoy you. And they want to be loved and enjoyed. And brethren, listen, may we never be a church where children are shunned and disregarded. May this always be a place where children are celebrated and enjoyed to the glory of God. Now, some of you who are single, moving on here, some of you who are single might be sitting there going, yeah, exactly, brother. All that blessing that you're talking about, I don't have none of that. So how am I supposed to enjoy my life, right? I'm missing out on all that. Well, let me just say this, right? Without negating the fact that all of that is a blessing, because it very much is. Without negating all that, those who have done it for a little bit of time, marriage and kids, they will be quick to tell you that even everything I just said ain't as easy as I even made it out to be. All of that stuff can be hard at times. It takes work to enjoy your marriage. It takes work to enjoy your children. It all isn't just easy peasy. But regardless, what I want you to know, even if you are single, is that even in your present circumstances, you can enjoy life to the glory of God. Paul, he speaks to the Corinthians in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, and you can turn there if you want, because I'm going to go there in a minute. But he speaks to these Corinthians, and he speaks to these different categories of married, the unmarried, the widowed, and he gives principles for each of them. But he says to the unmarried in 1 Corinthians 7, those who marry will have worldly troubles. Okay, there's a reality that as you enter into marriage, there are well, maybe this isn't the best word for it, but there are consequences for that, right? That's not necessarily to be negative, but there are things that come along with marriage that you kind of have to give up when you're single, right? Otherwise, the marriage thing doesn't really work if you just act like you're single now. So he says, if you marry, you will have worldly trouble. So look here with me, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, because I want you to see what Paul has to say about this. 1 Corinthians 7, starting in verse 32. Listen to what he says. He says, I want you to be free from anxieties. The married man is anxious the unmarried man is anxious about the things of the Lord, how to please the Lord. But the married man is anxious about worldly things, how to please his wife. And his interests are divided. And the unmarried or betrothed woman is anxious about the things of the Lord, how to be holy in body and spirit. But the married woman is anxious about worldly things, how to please her husband. I say this for your own benefit, not to lay any restraint upon you, but to promote good order and to secure your undivided devotion to the Lord. Now, listen, brethren. You can see what he's saying here, right? As you get married, there are things in life that change for you, right? You have other things that are concerns, other anxieties in your life that you have to be concerned about. And those things aren't evil, but that's just the reality of what it is when you enter into marriage. And the reality is, brethren, as a single person, you have more opportunity to serve God in ways that an unmarried person does not have. Where are you? None of the married men in here can do what you're about to do and decide to go take a trip to Japan to scout out missionary opportunities. We can't just get up and do that, but you have a great opportunity to be able to do something like that, right? I can't take my Bible and my other books and go off and read for hours like I used to, even though I might try to do that at some times. At some point it gets cut to an end and that just can't happen anymore, right? I can't enjoy fellowship to all hours of the night like I used to. I can't plan things on a whim like I used to do. You all see my new calendar on my countertop there, right? My life is bound by a calendar now. I remember years ago at a church we used to be at, I tried to plan a dinner with another family there, and he was like, yeah, we should be able to do it in June. And I'm like, I could be dead by then. Calendar, like, can I just come over tonight? But brethren, my life is not the way that it used to be anymore. I got to plan things. It's got to be scheduled. And this is just the reality of what my life has become with 5, almost 6 kids and a wife. That's just part of what happens as your life develops in that way. So I don't have the kind of freedoms and the ability to do things that some of you do being single. My life is now bound by many other constraints. Constraints that I can enjoy and give glory to God for, but constraints nonetheless. And those of you who are single don't have those constraints. And you have the opportunity to enjoy life in a different way than I can do it. So do it. Enjoy it in the way that God has given it to you to His glory. A few other brief things here. Let me talk about here this matter of age. Now, to those who are young, the Bible would often exhort you to enjoy and not waste your youth. Listen to this. Ecclesiastes 11:9. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Listen, younger people don't need to wish that they were older. They don't need to pretend like they're older. Trust me, it'll just kind of happen all on its own, right? You're just going to get older. You don't have to wait for it, or you don't have to wish for it or pretend it. You're going to just get older, and it'll come a lot faster than you think that it will come. Now, I'm not old by any stretch, but I can tell you that the things that I could do in my mid-20s and my late 20s are not the same as they used to be. And I have to, some way, at this point, try to grasp some of that youth back that I had, because I didn't use it well. I didn't use it properly, and I could have used it better. I know to some degree I'm starting to definitely grow a little older, and this either could be a mark of my growing older, or it could be a mark of genius. But yesterday, we had our kids go and clean the house, and they cleaned their bedrooms, and they came back and they said it's all clean. And I handed my son my phone and I said, go take a video of your room. I want to see if it's clean. So that could be genius, or that could be laziness or getting old. I don't know. You guys can decide. But listen to this, right? The Proverbs tells us, in regards to young men, right? What is the glory of a young man? You know, strength, right? Listen to this, Proverbs 20:29. The glory of young men is their strength. So listen, in your youth, enjoy these parts of life, right? Don't worry. You'll get old. You'll be able to say, you know, the sort of things that old people say all the time, like, oh, we need some young bucks over here. You'll be able to say that kind of thing someday in your life. But before you get to that point, be that young buck who's strong and useful and capable, right? Be strong, train your body, be a valuable, strong man and useful man in the church. In your youth, enjoy it to the glory of God. But don't think for a moment here, right, that as you get older, that somehow that glory and that enjoyment goes away. Because it doesn't. It just looks different. Listen to this. Now Proverbs 20, I read this text a second ago, the glory of young men is their strength. Now, it may well say that the glory of young men is their strength, but it also says this: the splendor of old men is their gray hair. You ever heard that text before? There is a glory that comes for each of these things in its own time. There is an enjoyment of life that comes with getting old. And it involves actually an exaltation in the Bible. Listen to this. Proverbs 16:31. Gray hair is a crown of glory. It is gained in a righteous life. You see, brethren, a life lived with a focus to glorifying God. These people, in their old age, they now get to enjoy life as one who has insight and wisdom on righteousness. They wear a crown upon their heads, and a crown that others should aspire to have at some time in their life. Now listen, I'm going to make a brief point on this. I think it's important to say, as you get older, men and women, I would plead with you, don't dye your hair. Now I'm not making a big point about this. I just want to say here, right? This is how the Bible says this. I just want to tell you, right? The Bible literally says that gray hair is a crown on your head. Does it not say that? Did we read that text? Should we read it again? Let's read it again. Gray hair is a crown of glory for you. Now, some of you hate me right now, but that's okay. I'm gonna tell you, right? If you remove this from your head, you might as well be removing a crown from your head. Don't do it. Don't do it. This is even God turning your hair gray is meant for you to enjoy. So enjoy it in your old age to the glory of God. Now, there's a lot more I think that could be said about these things, and we could go on about different circumstances in life that we ought to enjoy, different blessings in life that we ought to enjoy. But I just, like I said in the beginning, I want to give you a brief warning here at the end. And I feel like it's necessary to give, given the context of what we've just looked at. I find it very interesting that if you read 1 John, John's letter to the church, right, he speaks about all these great things we have, these blessings in Christ, benefits of being a Christian, love of the brethren, the gifts of the Spirit, and he closes his letter with sort of a very striking exhortation. Anybody know how John closes that letter? Yes. He says, "Little children, keep yourselves from idols." Now, I must say, at the risk of undoing everything that I've just said to you, I do find that it is especially necessary at the end of a sermon like this. I want you to go forth and enjoy life to the glory of God. I want you to do that. I want you to, as we leave here and we go to my house and we eat lunch, I want you to enjoy that food to the glory of God. I want you to enjoy your children. I want you to enjoy your husband or wife. I want you to enjoy your life as a single person. I want you to enjoy your work. I want you to enjoy all of these beautiful gifts of life given to you by God. But brethren, I want you to also beware of making any of that an idol in your life. Because God gives us these gifts to enjoy. He does not give us these gifts to take His place. And there's a serious danger here. Consider this warning given to Israel. Deuteronomy chapter 6. If you want to turn there, this is just our last text. Deuteronomy 6, starting in verse 10. When Yahweh your God brings you into the land that He swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give you, with great and good cities that you did not build, and houses full of good things that you did not fill, and cisterns that you did not dig, and vineyards and olive trees that you did not plant, and when you eat and are full, then take care, lest you forget Yahweh, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Brethren, there is a serious warning here that we have to take note of. Now, remember, the gifts are not bad. God says they're good, right? When I bring you into good cities that you did not build, houses full of good things, right? The blessings themselves are not the bad thing. But it comes with a great warning that those who receive these gifts and these blessings, the warning goes out to not allow those things to lead you away from the God who gave you those things. Brethren, be mindful, because the desire for a spouse might lead you far from God if you turn a gift into a curse. If your work becomes an obsession to the neglect of your family, you've taken a gift and you've turned it into a curse. If your children rule your life rather than the will of God, you've turned a blessing into a curse. If the strength of your youth becomes your overwhelming passion rather than God, you've turned a blessing into a curse. If you overindulge in wine and get drunk, you've turned a blessing into a curse. And brethren, any one of God's blessings can be turned inside out to your absolute ruin. Don't think for a second that this can't touch you in any particular aspect of your life. It can. Any one of these things can be twisted and reversed and made into something ugly, something that God does not intend it to be. But again, it doesn't mean that the gift itself is evil, but we can use those things and twist them. And so, brethren, I would warn you, don't do that. Don't take a good gift and turn it into a curse in your life. Enjoy your life to the glory of God. Enjoy all the aspects and gifts of life that God has given you to the glory of God. Really do it, brethren. Really live your life that way, with enjoyment and passion and love and filled with just goodness in your life. Do that to His glory. But brethren, keep yourselves from idols. Let's pray.